Hello everyone and welcome to another recap race analysis here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel, or if you're listening on the Cycling Dane podcast. Today, Patrick and myself are going to be breaking down the first stage of the Giro d'Italia. And I mean, Patrick, what exactly happened on the day?
It was really exciting. First stage of the Giro d'Italia, we are back, guys. This is it, the first Grand Tour of the year. We see a breakaway getting up the road of 5 riders, and they stayed out there until, over the Gratchen climb. So that was taken by Sylvain Monique. He will go into the KOM classification leader jersey tomorrow for the time trial. We saw some attacks and some counter-attacks. Juan Ayuso went down in a rather kind of strange little bump. He kind of fell on the floor around this little roundabout. It was nothing too serious, so hopefully nothing too permanent there to hamper the rest of his Giro d'Italia. But then the main kind of meal of the day is we're going twice over the Surel climb, which is roughly 7 kilometers at 4.5% with a steeper gradient at 8% in the first kilometer. On that first descent, we see a lot of the major sprinters, including Olav Koy, Sam Bennett, Paul Magnier, Milan Fletan, etc., all being dropped on that first descent by the infernal pace being set by Lidl-Trek. Caden Groves and Wout van Aert managed to survive that first descent. And then we go through our first passage of the finish line before going into the Surel climb for a second time. And we see Lidl-Trek once again. They pretty much were just on the front the whole day, and they set, again, a pretty infernal pace. We see Tarlin getting dropped off the back. Then we see a Rensman getting dropped off the back. Very much deja vu from the stage 1 of the Giro d'Italia 2024. After him, I think Derek G also got detached slightly. He was in a group which is probably about 20-25 seconds back. We'll take a look at the results in a little bit. That's just kind of what was being said in commentary. On the descent, it was tight. It was twisty. It was technical. Lidl-Trek take to the front. It is like 7 kilometers to the finish. I mean, they've only got Ciccone and Vácek in front of Mads Pedersen at this point, but he is alongside Wout van Aert because Caden Groves was dropped, probably the fastest people in this bunch of only, maybe in like 30 or so riders at this point. It was a lot of GC contenders. We see on the descent, rather sadly, we just cut to this sound of horrific braking and a crash, and there was a Soudal Quick-Step rider down, and sadly it was Mikel Landa, which is really sad to see that, Landa just coming into this race with such fantastic form going, and it wasn't even like a nice crash, it was like just off this weird little verge into a ditch. It wasn't particularly great, but going back to the sprint, there's a lot of kind of attacks and counter-attacks going on as some teams are fancying their chances to ping off the front solo, but Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe actually take to the front to control it. I'm not sure whether Roglic was thinking he might be able to snag some bonus seconds or something like that, but they had a lot of numbers there. UAE Team Emirates were relatively noted by their absence towards the front, I must say. I think Jay Vine also went down in the crash, just as a side note, but he seemed okay. And then going into the sprint, we take this left-hand end onto kind of the last 500 meters, 400 meters, let's say. Vácek takes the lead of that with Pedersen on his wheel, Wout van Aert on his wheel. Alois Allois, Francesco Bussato, one of my favourite riders, was also up there in like the top 5. The sprint gets led out by Vácek. He's kind of tightening up, but Pedersen doesn't want to launch yet. Still 350 meters to go. I think Pedersen goes with, I want to say, somewhere between 200 to 250 meters to go. He slams it over to the right-hand side of the road. Wout van Aert's in his wheel, Allois behind him, Bussato and Pidcock. Allois trying to come round, but it's a little bit of like a cobbly kind of finish, so his wheel was kind of jittering all over the place. Wout van Aert tries to come round. Pedersen, it's neck and neck, but Pedersen are probably only just by, obviously people that listen on my podcast, they can't see how far away my fingers are, but probably about that far away. I think it was a really close finish, but Pedersen takes the win. So the top 10 of the first stage of the Giro d'Italia 2025 goes with Mads Pedersen taking the win ahead of Wout van Aert and Alois Allois of Movistar in 3rd place. Francesco Bussato, my boy, getting up to there in 4th place. Tom Pidcock in 5th. Diego Ulissi in 6th. Carapaz 7th. Max Poole 8th, Nicola Conci in 9th, and Davide Piganzoli of Polti Visit Malta rounds out the top 10.
But Patrick, very interesting stage. And as a Dane, great to see Mads Pedersen, Mario Rosa. I can't remember the last Dane who was actually in the Mario Rosa. Alex Rasmussen? Maybe not. But Yeah, what did you make of Lidl-Trek and that phenomenal kind of iron grip they had on the race and everyone committing to the cause, even Giro Ciccone, who we were talking up and as maybe going for a GC this year?
Yeah, it's very true. I think the Lidl-Trek were very strong today, and I was a little bit apprehensive. I wasn't sure whether this last climb would be difficult enough to maybe detach Groves or Coy, because Coy's been quite good at climbing in some Terreno stages this year, but obviously it was quite hard. And Pedersen carrying that classics form into this race, he's had a pretty, well, I was going to say flawless year. I mean, he maybe hasn't won as much as he wanted to, but he's looked fantastic this year. So Lidl-Trek, quite rightfully so, put all their eggs into the Pedersen basket. And is this actually his first Grand Tour Leaders jersey? Or am I misremembering of Welter? I think it is his first Grand Tour Leaders jersey. But I think it was really impressive. Obviously, I think that this was all right. This is fine. I mean, not to be like a pessimist or whatever in this, but this worked because there was a lot of climbing and their team has quite a few climbers in there. Whereas when it comes to the pure bunch sprints, I'm not sure quite how well this team will fare. But for today's stage, this was like almost a very ideal team for them to be bolstering into this. I thought absolutely chapeau to Lidl-Trek. They set the stall out, they executed a plan, and, it paid off. And they've got the leader's jersey. I mean, it'll be interesting to, maybe we'll discuss a little bit later about whether Pedersen can hang on to this ahead of WOUT VAN AERT in the time trial tomorrow, because Pedersen is quite good over a short TT as well. But yeah, chapeau to Lidl-Trek, very good performance.
So, I mean, you mentioned WOUT VAN AERT. Yeah, we can discuss that. It would be a great battle between him and Mads Pedersen. Both of them have tasted success in points classifications in various different stage races. But yeah, my heart was almost skipped a beat when we came up to the finish. It was almost like Amstel Gold 2021. Well, it wasn't really a photo finish, was it? There was quite a clear gap, and Mads Pedersen did celebrate with quite a sensible margin down to WOUT VAN AERT. But what did you make of WOUT VAN AERT? He looked like he was struggling a bit on the climbs. There was the report that he had some illness as well going into this, but I think WOUT VAN AERT looks very, very good if he's been having illness.
I think you're absolutely right. If this is one ill WOUT VAN AERT is, then I think a healthy one will be leaps and bounds better. Yeah, you are right. On the final Surel climb, he was on the wheel of Pedersen, but when Ciccone went to the front, he really just pulled out the line and was dropping places. And I dare to say if that climb was a kilometre longer, maybe WOUT VAN AERT wouldn't have made it. It's possible. That's all just speculation, though. At the end of the day, WOUT VAN AERT did look really good today. He was sprinting really well. Usually we see WOUT VAN AERT in these sorts of scenarios. People always talk about, WOUT VAN choke and whatever. And yes, he did finish second place again. But the fact that he wasn't sprinting when he sat down and doing that weird little head bobble thing that he does when he's really on the limit, I think shows that WOW is actually in decent form. And it'll be interesting to see if his time trialing legs are also up to the job tomorrow.
What did you think of Alois? I thought he blocked him in. I thought there was something. Okay, I'm happy that Mads Pedersen won, but I did feel for WOUT VAN AERT. I thought there was a bit of. Was there anything there, or am I just seeing illusions?
No, I think it's fair game in their sprinting. At the end of the day, Pedersen sprinted over to the barrier, and it was just bad timing where Alois was kind of half alongside Pedersen, but that, yeah, like you say, had blocked in WOUT VAN AERT. Maybe if that hadn't happened, WOUT might have been able to get round him, but essentially, yeah, kind of blocked WOUT VAN AERT in a little bit against the barrier. So who knows? Maybe things would have been different, but still, Alois finishing in third place. He's had some welter kind of top
now. He might get relegated.
He might get relegated, in which case my boy Francesco Bassato is in third place, and I'll be absolutely over the moon.
What do you think of the battle between Mads Pedersen and WOUT VAN AERT? I mean, none of them they're kind of very similar riders as well. They're not pure sprinters, let's be honest, but they're very good at classics. They were just battling each other for Paris-Roubaix and Tour of Flanders podiums. So here we are in the middle of Albania.
Yeah, literally. As we've got Tadej versus Van der Poel for the classics, we've now got, Pedersen and Wout. And you're right, they are very similar riders, and I've always thought that Pedersen is essentially a bit like WOUT VAN AERT, but just hasn't been quite as good in all areas, let's say. But I think that it's going to be really interesting over these 3 weeks. Is WOUT now going to have favour to try and get the Chiclamina jersey. But obviously they've got Koi here, so if that were to be the case, WOUT would have to sprint of a regular flat sprints, which I don't think would happen because Koi's got a far better chance of winning. But this is a real statement for Pedersen to try and get the Chiclamina jersey. And this is already a little bit of a head start. He's clearly climbing better than Groves, let's say, who I'd probably say is his closest adversary in terms of the climbing consistency. And Pedersen is very good at getting in breakaways. We saw that in Paris-Nice. He's very capable of climbing. So I think Pedersen has really put a big stake in the ground saying that this is going to be my jersey this year. I mean, gosh, somebody's going to have to rip the pink jersey off of him first, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's a good time trialist. He has won time trials in the past, but including in the Tour of Denmark, where he actually won the whole Tour of Denmark against Matthias Skelmos Jensen, but that's for another time. Yeah, Landissimo. It's over once again. I mean, I'm a big Mikael Landa fan, but this curse, was it 2021 where he crashed out as well in the early stages? Here he crashed on stage 1. I mean, the descent looked quite dangerous. I don't know what you make of it, but now that whole team is kind of, they still have, it wasn't completely a dedicated team around him. You had Luc Lampertine there, you have Paul Magnier, who actually wasn't there in the finish. But yeah, what did you make of that crash? And just annoying.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. No, other people did go down as well. It's not like Landa was just on a,
J-Vine.
Yeah, like other people did go down. It wasn't as if Landa was just being incompetent or something like that. It was just that, I don't know what it was. Obviously, we didn't really have a great camera angle on it. It looked like maybe just Landa's on the outside of somebody and they take a bit of a line and they shuffle out a little bit and basically you run out of road. So it was a real shame to see Landa. At first I wasn't sure if it was him, but yeah, when it kind of cut back, I was like, no, that is actually Landa. I still don't actually know if he is a DNF. To be honest, I don't want to speculate on that, but yeah, he looked like he wasn't really he looked like he was in a little bit of pain. So it was very sad to see because Landa was one of the best climbers in this race, in fantastic form. He had a great terrain at Adriatico. And I think that he was coming into this race probably as at least a top 5 candidate. So yeah, it is quite sad to see that we might not have any more of Landa in this race. Hopefully he's okay and he can continue and go for stage successes instead. To keep the Landissimo alive. But yeah, it's very sad to see. We don't like to see crashes, but yeah, it was a little bit of a twisty, tight descent. And I don't know, it looked like maybe there could have been some barriers and stuff there, or some padding, but you can't pad every single corner of a descent. Like, there's always the possibility of crashing, so it's just part of the parcel of the sport, sadly.
Yeah, he'll probably have to kind of refocus towards the Tour de France and do the same job he did for Remco Evenepoel. But Landissimo aside, just a wipe a tear. Derek G losing time, that was a bit of a shock. Obviously, top 10 in the Tour de France last year. Dauphiné, we know about that. Last time he was at the Giro, he was basically second on many stages, and I think it was second in the points on the Manson's jersey classifications as well. This is going to be a big blow for Israel Premier Tech, obviously, losing time already. Okay, he might be able to claw something back on the time trial tomorrow, but you just don't want to lose time. It's like you always say this, time gained at the beginning of the Grand Tour is equal to the time gained at the finish of a Grand Tour.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you don't really want to be losing. I still don't know how much time it is. But I think it's going to be at least 30 seconds or so, given the franticness of that sprint finale. And G was pretty much alone. I think he might have had one teammate with him, but still, at the end of the day, that would be like 2 people versus however many people were fighting for the stage victory. So, yeah, it's not ideal for Derek G, but it's a long race, and anything can happen. Really, like, he can still come back. Like you say, he'll probably gain time with a TT, but it's not an ideal start when you've got people who are inside this front group, fighting for the victory. in the top 10 who aren't GC candidates. Like, you know, when you have somebody like, I don't know, Nicola Conchi or, you know, like a Bassato or an Alwar or whatever, and you're a GC contender, you'd think that they would keep up with them, but it's the first day of a Grand Tour. You don't know how people are planning to peak in this race. Maybe some people are hoping to kind of get through the first week without, you know, and a little bit undercooked and build into the race. So maybe that's just a bit of a risk that they played and it's kind of bit them today.
Who's the big winner of today other than Lidl-Trek?
Maybe Astana on the whole, actually, I would say. They've got 2 people inside the top 10. Obviously, that doesn't give you too many UCI points, but that is their objective. And it's also worthwhile mentioning on that first Surel climb that Fortunato took those points. And he also took 1 point on the top of the Glatchen climb. So it looks like Fortunato's going for the KOM classification, which is quite interesting. Apparently the win for that is worth 180 UCI points, which would be quite a nice little thing for them to have. So if he managed to do that and finish top 10 GC by getting plenty of breakaways, I think Fortunato is going to be really strong as well. But yeah, just a good showing from Astana with Ulissi and Conchi. I think that's really strong from them. Other winners, I would say, you know, outside of Lidl-Trek, I would say WOUT is a win, honestly, even if he was second place. I think that was a nice showing from him to come back from a kind of subpar or subpar classic season to come back and finish second place after a little bit of illness. I think is really good.
Yeah, that's where we're going to finish today as well. We'll see who's going to be in Blanio Rosa after the time trial tomorrow. Join us back for that. The recap race analysis for that should be very interesting. Will Mads Pedersen be able to hold on to that? Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, comment down below, and